everyone. My name is Barbara Gagliotti, and I am the Associate Director of Crossroads Cultural Center, and we are co-sponsoring tonight's event. I'm very sorry to inform you that Robert Riley will not be here tonight. He broke his arm on Sunday in 2 places. And so he is in a lot of pain, and he is also very sorry not to be able to be here to greet Wael Farouq, who is a friend of his. He didn't tell me, and he seemed like he was, I didn't want to ask. But of course he's on the mend, but you know, it's just not been so many days, so he thought he'd be able to throw his jacket over his, arm and get away with it, but that was that he quickly understood that was not going to happen. So he asked me to step in, and Crossroads Cultural Center is a co-sponsor of tonight's event, and we are an organization that finds its inspiration in the charism of Father Luigi Giussani. It's a Catholic lay movement which is present in 170 countries throughout the world. And our goal is to bring opportunities for education, which offer the possibility to look at reality with openness, with curiosity, and with critical awareness. Often our events, like the events that we participate in tonight, are the occasion for profound dialogue and frank dialogue, and the occasion for surprising encounters, like the one that we've had with our friend Wael Farouq. Who could have imagined, I think, the importance of the chance encounter that you between a Christian student of Arabic language and his Muslim professor, that generated a long history of friendship and has opened pathways for greater understanding between cultures and religion. And perhaps Professor Farouq will tell us a little bit more about that in the question and answer period. But that's what we do, to generate encounter, to generate an affection where you can actually speak of things and have a dialogue about things. In addition to his academic work, and I won't go into his biography because you've had that in the announcements that were sent out, Professor Farouq was instrumental in publishing The Religious Sense in Arabic. The Religious Sense is the seminal work of Father Luigi Giussani about the human person, about the use of reason, about religiosity. And Professor Wael was extremely happy to bring that to light in Arabic. He also dedicates quite a bit of his time to promoting dialogue between Christian and Muslim thinkers and leaders. And we thank him for that. And the last thing that I'll mention before I introduce our speaker is that the last time that we had the honor of hosting you was when you shared the stage with Robert Riley in 2012, and this was at the National Press Club. Bob had just published his work on the closing of the Muslim mind, and we were in sort of the waning period of the Arab Spring, so we had a very lively dialogue on was there any hope coming out of the Arab Spring? And I hope that we can get a little update on that tonight, perhaps in the question and answer period. So the format of tonight's discussion will be a presentation followed by questions and answers. And we ask that during the question and answer period that all speakers please approach the microphone, because this is being filmed so that we can put it on the websites, and to be as succinct as possible in your comments, and to make questions in the form of a question. Please join me in welcoming Professor Wael Farouq, who is Professor of Arabic Language, Literature and Culture at the Catholic University of Milan in Italy. He will speak on his latest work, which is entitled Conflicting Arab Identities. So thank you for coming, Wael, and being with us.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I am really honored to be here this evening with you. I am really grateful for Bob Rayleigh for inviting me and for his hospitality. And I'm going to ask you to excuse me for my English at the beginning, because it's not the strong Egyptian accent, but it's also combined by an Italian accent, so God help you. The structure of the presentation, I'm going to part from the explosion of the fatwa, this phenomenon that you can find in all Islamic world, especially in Arab world. And after presenting this phenomenon, I am going to speak about why, and I am proposing two answers. One within the Islamic tradition itself, what I call the duality of Ummah tribe, and the other one within the form of modernity that has arrived to the Arab world. And after this, I will move to speak also about the fatwa in West and the Muslims living in West, but particularly in Europe, because it's a statistical study that I made on Muslims in Europe. So this fatwa, this phenomenon is very important, and it's regarding all aspects of everyday life for all Muslims and for Muslim societies. As you can see here, starting from 1990, we have this explosion of this technological fatwa. We can find fatwa on Facebook, even on smartphones. There is an app for fatwa. There is Google Imam. There are a lot of forms, of the fatwa in modern world. Just to give you an image about how huge this phenomenon is, we will see that Islam Week, for example, you see 170 fatwa, 24 fatwa per day. This is only one website in 5 languages. There are others in 16 languages. There are millions of people who are following. I'm not going to read everything, so we stay with time. Millions of people who are following the imams who are issuing this fatwa, and one of them, for example, is followed by Amr Khalid. It's an Egyptian preacher, and is followed by 29 millions, which is 3-4 Arab countries combined together. So it's a fatwa that you can find in every everyday life Muslim. You can find it, present from the very big questions to the very small questions. One of these fatwas, I found it, for example, on the Facebook page of Al-Azhar University, and it's about a young man who was a student in American University in Cairo, just got his new smartphone. And as all we do, the first thing he was going to do is to personalize his smartphone. And as a religious young man, the first thing he thought to do was downloading the Holy Quran on his smartphone. The internet is very slow in Egypt, so downloading took very long time. And while he is waiting for the download, his stomach started to move. He got this basic, superficial, but very important need to go to bathroom. But he said, okay, I'm not going to waste 2 hours of downloading. I will wait till I complete the downloading of the Holy Quran, and after run to the bathroom. And when he was on the limits of his tolerance, the download finished, and he started to run towards the bathroom. In front of the bathroom, he stopped. came to his mind a question. Can I enter the bathroom with my phone full of the words of God, of the Holy Quran? Wouldn't it be an insult of the words of God and the Holy Quran? And he stopped in front of the bathroom, divided between the pain of his stomach and the pain of his mind, cannot make a decision. This fatwa gave an example of what I want to present today. This young man is not poor because he's just got his new brand smartphone. He has good relationship with technology. He is well educated. He is a student in university. He is everything that we used to give as an answer of the crisis of Islam today. Not the poverty, not the lack of education, not any of these things. He's educated, he's rich, he has everything. But he cannot make such a simple decision, whether to enter the bathroom or not. So this is what I tried to study in this book. What went wrong with the Muslim world. But before I go through this, I wanted to quickly present what is fatwa, because fatwa and the ifta is a very beautiful and important mechanism in Islamic tradition. The fatwa in language we see has all of this beautiful meaning of renewal, of seeking knowledge, of seeking wisdom. So it has a beautiful meaning in Arabic language. It has a beautiful meaning in Islamic tradition. It was mentioned 11 times in the Holy Quran, always with a very positive meaning. The fatwa at the end, we can say it's a sort of seeking for perfection. In fact, in Islamic history, we see the first one who issued fatwa is God himself. In fact, we can divide the Quran into two different categories. One was revealed initially to Prophet Muhammad, and the other one was a response to a human question, a human curiosity, or a human need. So the fatwa, from its meaning in language, in tradition, and from its history, it's a very important mechanism not only to keep living in harmonious way with the Sharia, but to produce the Sharia, to produce the tradition itself. So this was in the history, in the beginning, in the early history of Islam, it used to be like this. But this beautiful tradition and this beautiful meaning with time disappeared. The fatwa became like a closed form that we have to force reality to enter into it. So we see the positive meaning of the fatwa that was at the beginning, producing the Sharia, producing the tradition, guarantee a harmonious relationship between what is religious and the reality and the human needs. Okay? The mechanism of fatwa also in Islamic jurisprudence is very interesting, because the fatwa cannot exist if there is no curiosity. If there is no question, the fatwa cannot exist. And after issuing the fatwa, the people, the seeker of the fatwa is not, now Italian is coming, he is not forced to follow this fatwa. He can accept it or refuse it. So the fatwa, in summary, is based on the freedom to ask, the freedom to express your question, and the freedom to accept the answer or to refuse it. So the freedom is the key word of this Islamic tradition. The fatwa in the Quran also, as I said, present a large part of the Quranic verses. Okay, and we see also, this is also in rhetorical way, the most common, the most diffused rhetorical and linguistic form in the Quran is the question. So I can say that the most important thing for the Islamic tradition is not the answer given, but the question by the man. The question, the seeking of knowledge, the desire of knowledge, and this curiosity is the key of living in harmonious way with Islamic tradition. Of course, here is another hadith. You will find it in the handouts, the full text of this prophetic tradition. And in this hadith, we have this principle, very important principle, that Prophet Muhammad gave it as an answer to some of his companions seeking the knowledge of what is good and what is bad. And the Prophet Muhammad said to him, consult your heart. The heart is the ultimate reference for a Muslim. His heart is his reference. Of course, I said in theory, because unfortunately, this is the theory, but the practice is very different, and the reality is very different from this theory. How is this? I choose also another example of the fatwa that I'm going to use it as a starting point for this analysis. The fatwa speaks about a young a lady, a Muslim lady, working in an international bank in Egypt. And she was talking with some of her friends, relatives, and they told her, yes, okay, you have a prestigious work, you earn a lot of money, you have everything wonderful, but all of this is coming from a sin. Okay? And she said, what sin? And they said to her, you are working in a bank, staying in a closed room alone with your colleague. And this, according to Islamic tradition, is a sin. So the lady was astonished. And because she was sure that in Islamic tradition such a stupid thing cannot exist, she called one of the famous TV programs of fatwa, because we have a lot of TV programs where the imam listen on air to the questions of the audience and they give the answers. So she was so sure that it's impossible, her work is against Islamic tradition. She went to, she called this TV program, asked this imam if really her work if she's really committing a sin doing this work, staying alone in a closed room with her colleague. And strangely, the imam was not an ordinary imam. He was the head of the department of hadith in Al-Azhar University, in the faculty of religious foundation. And he said to her, yes, it is a sin. The lady was shocked, and not only the lady. 35 of Egyptian families are supported by women work, by women labor. So 35% of Egyptian families are going to face serious problems because most of these ladies are working in conditions that, from his point of view, are not going well with the Islamic tradition. So she collapsed. Said to him, what should I do? I am paying university for my kids. What can I do? And he was astonished by her reaction, said, I don't know. The only precedent I can see in the Islamic tradition is that one of Mawla Abi Hudayfa. A young man was adopted by one of the companions of Prophet Muhammad, who, when the adopting children was prohibited by Islam, the Prophet Muhammad allowed his mother, who adopted him, to breastfeed him several times, 5 times, in order to be like a mother for him and he can stay in the house. So he advised the lady to breastfeed her colleague in work 5 times. It's not a joke. It might be funny, but it's not a joke. So he consulted her to breastfeed her colleague in work 5 times till satisfaction, because this is the literary, the tradition that also you will find it in the handout, I think also. So this lady, of course, was astonished. Of course, not only the lady was astonished, the whole society was astonished. We have thousands of caricature, of article, of newspaper, of comedians making fun of this fatwa and drawing a line of men waiting in front of the office of a beautiful colleague, all of them waiting to be breastfeeded. The whole society was really astonished by this fatwa. But it didn't stop there, because at that time, when this fatwa was issued, the Muslim Brotherhood, the community of Muslim Brotherhood, had at that time 25% of the seats of the Egyptian parliament. So when they heard this fatwa, all media, TV talking about it, they said, okay, this was made by the government to defame us and our slogan, because the slogan of Muslim Brotherhood is Islam is the solution. And the Islam is the solution. How? By the application, by applying the Islamic law or the Sharia. So if this is the Sharia, nobody will accept to be applied. So they thought this is a plan made by the government against their ideology. So they revolt in the parliament, and they invited the Minister of Awqaf to question him in the parliament. So the University of Al-Azhar was also scandalized by the fatwa of its professor, and they decided to send him to retirement. The professor revolt. Why you send me to retirement? I didn't do anything wrong. I just followed the rules of the Islamic law, that all of us applying it to whatever case comes in front of us. The hadith that I used is hadith sahih, is correct, okay, and was never contested, in the Islamic law books. So the jurists of Muslim Brotherhood replied to him, yes, but this hadith was only for this case of Mawla Abi Hudhaifa. So the debate went ahead. So the professor didn't accept to go to retirement, and he went to the court, refusing this. The Egyptian government issued an administrative decision that making a fatwa should be by license. So if somebody wants to give a fatwa, because it's becoming a chaos, to give a fatwa, he has to get license from the Egyptian government. So it's a sort of monopolizing the power of giving a fatwa, because it became a strong phenomenon in the society. So we see, when we speak also what lacks these societies is modernity, it's not true. Because we see the modern institution of the Egyptian state, all of them were involved for years, because this lasted for years, debating whether a man should be breastfeeded by his female colleague in order to stay with her in office or not. We see the parliament was involved, university was involved, the government was involved, the media was involved, the court was involved. All institutions that define what we call modern state were involved in this debate, which put also another big question mark on what we call modern state in Arab Islamic world. It didn't stop there, because after 2 years, one of the consular of the king of Saudi Arabia, he issued again the same fatwa. At that time, thank God, today women in Saudi Arabia can drive their own cars by themselves. But at that time, it was still prohibited for the women in Saudi Arabia to drive cars. So a lady asked, can she make long trip traveling in her car with her male driver? And she received the same answer, that she has to breastfeed him. The Saudi society, that is much more conservative than the Egyptian one, they didn't make joke about it. They were very angry. So the consular of the king, Al-Ubaykan, he answered, but you understand wrongly. We are not this open-minded, stupid like Egyptians. It's enough that the lady put her milk in a cup and the driver drink this cup of milk, and that's it. They have to be in contact with her breast. So to make it short, again, after another year, the same fatwa came back again, but this time from Tunis, the same debate. And Tunis is a very secular society, very modernized society. They just lately, a few months ago, decided that men and women will be equally in inheritance, though. So they think that, the son gets twice like the daughter. Is not applied anymore according to the Tunisian civil law now. But the fatwa also arrived there, and there the answer was much more intelligent than the Egyptian and the Saudi one, because they said, why the woman milk here? We have technology today. It's enough to put the web camera in the room, so they are observed all the time, and there is no need there is no need to this thing of breastfeeding. So we see all reactions was to go around the tradition. With all of this modern institution, we still look to the presence of women in the public space as a source of sin and evil. So this fatwa gives a clear example, not about the conflict between Islamic tradition and modernity, but about the very harmonious way of coexisting together. But coexisting is not between Islamic tradition and modernity, but between a defamed Islamic tradition and a defamed modernity. So, to make it also more clear, in all Arab countries, mostly, in most of Arab countries, we have a parliament. The main role of this parliament is to justify the tyranny. So we have most of modern institutions are functioning exactly against their meaning. And I am coming to speak about this. So this coexisting contradiction, this crisis, I think, and this, as Barbara mentioned before, how I met Robert Relly for first time reading his book, in which he tried to give an answer to this crisis. And in my book also, I try to give an answer. So it's not about two different things that cannot live together. It's about the coexistence, the adapting one, the adaptation of tradition of the bad elements of modernity, and the adaptation of modernity of the bad elements of the Islamic tradition. And I think this starts really from the early beginning of Islam. There are a lot of main factors dominating the Muslim thinking today. One of them, for example, is always looking to the past, always searching for legitimacy of whatever we do in the past. How we can understand this, how we can understand a lot of actual modern contemporary practice of Islam, I think we can find this in the moment of the beginning of Islam. We see this, the first dualism is between Islam and Jahiliyyah. The word Islam, as many of you, I think they know very well, comes from the root salama, which means peace, safety, and very beautiful meanings. But in the moment of the beginning of Islam, two words appeared in the Arabic language. The word Islam itself and the word Jahiliyyah. The word Jahiliyyah, always regarded as the pre-Islamic period, comes from Jahl, which means ignorance. And it's ignorance because people they didn't know God and they didn't accept the faith of God. But when we really study this moment of the beginning of Islam, we find it's not like this. And there are hundreds of studies by many scholars about this period that proved the Jahiliyyah is not a period of violence and stupidity and ignorance. In fact, I can say with certainty that Islam has adopted 99% of what we call Jahiliyyah. Most of the things that we know about Islam today, they have existed before Islam. The idea of the one God existed before Islam. Cutting off the hands of the thief existed before Islam. Fasting Ramadan existed before Islam. Pilgrimage to Mecca existed before Islam. Everything that characterizes Islam today had already existed before Islam. What we call Jahiliyyah doesn't mean Jahl, which means ignorance, but it means something else. I think I presented anger associated with violence against the other. This is the meaning of the Jahiliyyah. Jahiliyyah means basically asabiyah, or the tribal solidarity. Why I am saying this? Because, as I said before, most of what we call Islamic practice have existed already before Islam. And also because of the image of Islam, how Prophet Muhammad considered the previous religions of Islam. This very beautiful prophetic tradition that you will find it also in your papers. Prophet Muhammad is describing himself as just a brick in a huge, beautiful building that present the prophetic tradition before him. As you see here, they asked him what relationship we have with the previous prophets, and he said it's like a beautiful, huge, beautiful house. Okay, that people go around it and admiring it, say, how wonderful. But they see in this house a missing brick and say, If it doesn't miss this brick, it would be perfect. So Prophet Muhammad comments that I am this brick. So he is nothing but a brick. He is not more important than others. It's just a simple brick in the building of the religion, but it is the one that brings the religious tradition to perfection. So this is the role of Islam. This is what Islam means really. Islam came, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, to bring to perfection the religious tradition. Not to bring new theology or new ideas. No, to give space for these religions to be practiced and to be lived correctly. Somebody said there was Christianity, Judaism before Islam. Yes, but also we know that the majority of Bedouins in pre-Islamic period, they were Christians. The most of tribes, they were Christian tribes. But they had nothing from Christianity. They were the religion of the tribe, the religion of the pre-Islamic society was the tribal solidarity. And before tribal solidarity, all kinds of evil is permitted for the sake of the tribe. Why the tribe is this important? That it makes valueless all of religions and all of human values and the human virtues. Tribe is very important. Okay, this is what I was trying to say before. Okay. Tribe was very important in the pre-Islamic period because tribe was the only way to survive the desert. The tribal solidarity was the only way to preserve life in the cruel environment of the desert. I choose a text, a dialogue between one of the Arabian kings long before Islam and the emperor of Persia, in which they make a debate. So the Arabs are very proud of themselves and say, but how does it come you are this proud? You are living like animals. You are eating the worst food. I mean, you have nothing to be proud of. How does it come you are this proud? And the Egyptian king, An-Nu'man, the Arab king, An-Nu'man replied to him, giving three pillars of the Arab, presenting the three pillars of the Arab identity. And this content of this dialogue was repeated 100 times in different 100 papers of scholars through the time, since the time, for example, of Al-Jahiz till Ahmad Amin and Taha Hussein. This content was always repeated, this idea of the language. The language as the most important element that built the Arab identity. And it's not, because all civilizations, the language was the element that present the identity of whatever civilization. We see the word barbarism came from barbar, that means he cannot speak the language. Also in Arabic language, the word foreigner, it's A'jami. And the word A'jami comes from Ujma. This word means it's animals, because animals have voices, but it's not language. So even Arabs look to the others like animals because they cannot speak language. Romans did the same, and everybody else did the same. But the language is very particular in the Arabian case. Okay. Of course, in the desert, life is very particular, and there is a great difference between life in desert and the life in agricultural society. In agricultural societies, the cradle of civilization is the space. You see in Rome, in Italy, in Egypt, in all agricultural societies, it's buildings, it's painting, it's the art preserved in space is what preserve the memory, the ideas, the virtues, the values of the people. But in the Arabian case, it's not the space, it's the time. Because there is no space. People in desert, they move from a place to another. They are nomadic people. And even when they go back to the first place, it's not anymore the same place. Because with the unpredictable movement of the wind, this place changed completely. So when you go back to the first place, it's not the same anymore. That's why In Arabic language, the word house, the word home, for example, in Arabic language has many words. Some of you knows Arabic language. We know bait means house. What does it mean, the word bait in Arabic language? The word bait means to spend the night. To spend the night, wherever you want, sleeping or not sleeping. If somebody spends the night, he bait. Okay? It's clear here. The other word, for example, is manzil, which comes from the verb nazala. What does it mean? Nazala means to come down. To come down from where? From the camel. So your home, your house is where you come off your camel. Another word, the word dara, which to make a circle. What relationship between dara and home? Because the caravan in desert, when the night comes and they wanted to camp, they make a circle and they sleep inside this circle. The word maskan comes from the verb sakana, which means to stop, to stand still. So we see all words that express space, place, home in Arabic language are expressing a moment of stop in a continuous movement. Okay? Because the biggest threat for the Bedouins is the time. Why the time? Because the passing of the time is what kills people. The passing of the time is what makes people are forgotten. This was the fear of the people living in the desert. That's why all words in Arabic language that has a meaning of time has at the same time meaning of something bad or something evil. We see, for example, okay, we come back to this. We see, for example, the word day. Day in Arabic language is yawm. It means a day and it means war. We see the word heen. Okay, heen. Okay. The word heen, okay, it means death. The word time itself in Arabic language is zaman. It means time and also it means disease. The word dahr, okay, it means a period of time and catastrophe. So all words in Arabic language that has a meaning of time has a meaning of evil at the same time. So let's here we see the people in agricultural societies, when they meet together, they ask, what's your name, from where you are? From Italy, from Egypt, from United States. But people in desert, when they meet, they ask from whom you are. Because people, they don't come from a place, people come from a person. So people in desert, they don't belong to a place, they belong to a person, to the ancestor of the tribe. So the tribe is the only space for existence. Without the tribe, people do not exist. That's why the tribe was very important for the people in the desert. It was the only way to survive the desert. This tribal solidarity. The tribe is the only way to keep the memory. We see that the worst punishment in desert wasn't death. There is another, much worse penalty, to be out of the tribe, to be cut from the tribe, because being out of the tribe means you will be killed and you will be forgotten. So the tribe was the only way to reserve the life of the person, of the individual, and also of the whole tribe. So this has resulted a lot of things. The reason I'm trying to, time is passing, so that's also defined the concept of reason in Arabic culture. Because now the reason is not the effort to link and to understand and to generate knowledge. Reason became merely the memory. The art. The art in the Arabic culture is poetry. And they even call one verse of poetry bait, which means home. Why? Because the poetry was the art to keep the memory of the tribe. Even when a poet was born in whatever tribe, they spend years celebrating the born for him as a poet, not as a child. For years celebrating a presence of a poet. Why? Because this means that the legacy of the tribe will keep to live. So we see the concept of reason in Arabic language became to tie up, to keep, to do not let go the knowledge and the memory of the tribe. And this was passed to Islamic tradition. We see here a definition was presented by Al-Ghazali, say, aql comes from aqal al-ba'ir, to bind the camel by joining its legs together. And the aqala, it's to handcuff. Why? Because the concept of aql, of reason in Arabic language, is to keep the knowledge from being lost, not to seek the relation, to seek understanding of the relationship between the phenomenon in our world. So the language became the most important element of the identity of Arab people. When An-Nu'man responded to the emperor of Persia, he said to him, we have the Arabic language, the most beautiful language, the language that is better than all other languages, which also passed to Islam. It's the language of the paradise. In Islamic tradition, people in paradise speaks Arabic. So try to learn some Arabic if you want to go to paradise. So the second pillar, of course, is lineage in the Arabic, because knowing the line of the tribe, knowing is what keeps this tribal solidarity pure. And the third was the extremism of virtue. Why? And those who have visited the Arab world, they can see this by themselves. If you go to a very poor family, they can even sell their bed to buy for you a decent meal. They are extremely generous. They can offer everything for their guest. They are extreme in good virtue and also in bad virtue. But from where comes this extremism in virtue? It comes also from the pre-Islamic period, from the culture of the tribe. Why? Because the memory, the collective memory, doesn't preserve the ordinary, doesn't preserve the normal. In order to keep for yourself a place in the collective memory, you have to be extraordinary. So extraordinary in generosity, in courage, in whatever. You have to be extreme in order to keep for yourself a place. Of course, I am not going to, the whole dialogue is in the handout, so you can also have a look to it. But we have hundreds of stories, of people. In desert also, each value, each human virtue has a symbol, has a person that make a sort of incarnation of this value. For generosity, for example, we have Hatim. Why? Because once he had some guests arrive to him, he had no food in his home, he cannot offer his guests anything, so he asked his son if he accepted to be slaughtered and cooked to feed the guests. And the son, for the sake of keeping the virtue of generosity, accepted the request of his father. Of course, some people say this is mythology, it's not real, but it's reflecting the very long life of such stories, accepted and glorified by the people, means it's responding to some elements in their culture. Okay. So, we see that Islam came basically to fight this tribal solidarity. Why I am saying this? Islam, as I said to you before, didn't bring almost anything new to the world. Islam tried to create a space to the good things brought by previous religion to be practiced and lived. Okay? What was the main obstacle against, this Islamic dream, the dream of Prophet Muhammad to create on earth his utopia? A lot of people speaks about Islam as, at the paradise. You speak about beautiful women in paradise that people go to explore themselves. In fact, the attempt of Prophet Muhammad was to make a paradise on earth before the afterlife. And making this paradise on earth, the main obstacle was the tribe, because people are divided. And when it comes justice in front of tribal solidarity wins. Generosity, tribal solidarity wins. And we have a lot of poetry and a lot of stories in Arabic heritage not studied in this context. Usually when we speak about Islam, we go to study the Islamic jurisprudence and the Sharia and these things. Many don't study the cultural context of this Islamic law. And the cultural context of this Islamic law said the tribe was the biggest enemy of Islam. You see, when you read carefully Quran, you see that Islam didn't condemn the religions before it, but it condemned the worship of fathers. Because many times in Quran, we have verse saying, and if you ask them who have created the earth and the heaven and the whole world, they respond Allah. So why you don't accept Islam? No, because our fathers didn't do it. Our fathers didn't follow new traditions. We keep the road, the path that was followed by our fathers. So the tribe was the main enemy, the main obstacle to realize what's called ummah. What is ummah? Ummah is the community of believers that give this space for the human values and the virtues to be lived. So we see now the true conflict was not between people who believes in God and other people who do not believe in God. The main conflict was between people who want to keep the tribe and the ummah, the Islamic dream. They make the brotherhood between all people on the basis of the faith and of this human virtue. This ummah, this new society, was in conflict with the tribe. For example, when Muslims wanted to start their calendar, they affronted this question: when Islamic history started? When Prophet Muhammad was born? No. Prophet Muhammad is just a man. By the way, Prophet Muhammad is sacred for many Muslims, but for Islam is not sacred. He's just a man. Was selected by God to deliver a message, but he's not a sacred. He's not Jesus Christ of Muslims, because many people think so. So he's just a man. So we cannot mark the beginning of the history of Islam by the birth of Prophet Muhammad. But we can mark the beginning of the Islam by the beginning of the revelation. The Quran is the only sacred thing for Muslims. No, not even Quran. Muslims choose the hijrah, the immigration. When Prophet Muhammad was persecuted in Mecca and he decided to escape from Mecca and go to Al-Madinah, to another city, they choose this moment of weakness, of persecution, to mark the beginning of their history. Why is this? Because this moment is very significant. It is the moment in which Prophet Muhammad left the tribe and built the ummah, the community of Muslim believers. And even the first thing that Prophet Muhammad did in Al-Madinah was very interesting. He made something called al-mu'akhah, the fraternity, the brotherhood between Muslims. And it was just, we are brothers. You are my brother, I am your brother, we are good. No, it was a legal brotherhood. It means if somebody dies, this brother can inherit his share of his fortune. So he built this society, anti-tribal society, in which the tribe is not present. Even the pagans of Mecca, when they wanted, Prophet Muhammad started to make his propaganda, started to preach the tribes, to convince them to embrace Islam. Okay? So in order to make the tribes don't listen to him, they said, okay, what should we say about Muhammad? We say he's a crazy man, he's saying nonsense. But no, this is not true. Okay, he's a very good speaker, he's very convincing. We can say he's just a crazy man. Okay, he's one of these poets who comes every while speaking about human virtue. No, What he's saying is not poetry and it's not similar to poetry. So what is Prophet Muhammad? At the end, they decided in the parliament of the Quraysh, because Mecca was the New York of the old world, by the way. Yeah? The very long-standing wars, there is no time to say everything, but the very long-standing war between Persia and Byzantium has destroyed all roads for trade. The only one left was this one in desert that goes through Mecca. The pagans and the merchants of Mecca, they controlled the world trade at that time. They were buying from west and selling for east and the opposite. So they were extremely rich. The society in Mecca was multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious society. You find even, the young men who followed Prophet Muhammad at the beginning, from their names and their origins, you understand. Mecca was like New York. There was Suhaib from Byzantium, from Roma. There was Salman from Persia. There was Bilal from Ethiopia. So you see, in this very tiny, small city in the desert, it was a multi-ethnic society. It was multicultural society. All of these people were permitted to express their religious and their cultural ideas. In fact, what Prophet Muhammad wanted to purify Mecca by destroying all these statues or this of the different gods of different tribes and the different people. And they refused because they saw his claim as a threat of their trade, because if we cut off the gods of the tribe from Mecca, they will start a war against us, and this war is going to be bad for the trade, for our economy. So they refused the call of Islam for economical reasons also. So this pre-Islamic society of Mecca was multicultural, multi-religious, multi-ethnic society. Is not primitive society as we used to read in the books of Muslim scholars later after. So when Muslims choose the beginning of their history, this was the Ummah. When the pagans want to defame Prophet Muhammad in front of the tribe, they said he's not a poet, he's not a crazy man, he is a person who preach, his preaching divide brothers, son and father, husband and wife. So all tribes, they boycott Prophet Muhammad because they were afraid of his magic that divide the tribe, that deconstruct the tribe. And this was the idea that all of them have adopted. So here we see Islam came basically to destroy the tribe. Why the tribe? Because these elements of the tribe deprive the society of truly living and profoundly living the religious values. And we see in Islam, Christianity, Judaism, all religion, even some so-called pagan religion were adopted. Many say the word Rahman was not only from Rahma, but also the word Rahman, which one of the names of God, was a god worshipped in Yemen, for example. We see that Islam tried to adopt everything good. And that's why when Islam spread over in the world, never had a conflict. There was never a conflict between Islamic law and the local tradition. Because the main principle of Islamic law is to adopt whatever good in the tradition. What is prohibited in Islam is very few things. All the rest is permitted and is lawful. So this strong conflict between tribe from one side and the Ummah from the other side, in Islamic history, created a new entity, this coexisting contradiction that I am calling. Why? Because at a certain time, the Ummah itself became a tribe. So the Ummah came to destroy the tribe, but in the history, in the course of history, the Ummah became a tribe. How is this? I mention only two elements. One historical element, soon after the death of Prophet Muhammad, his companions gathered together to decide who is going to inherit his temporal power, not spiritual power. Those of Al-Madinah who invited Prophet Muhammad to immigrate to them, and they protected him as their children, and They fought all the battles of Islam. They gathered together in a place called the Saqifat Bani Sa'ida. Okay, and in this Saqifat Bani Sa'ida, they decided they choose one of them to be the ruler after Prophet Muhammad. Those Muhajirin, the family of, not the family, from the tribe of Quraysh who have immigrated with Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Al-Madinah, they rush to this place, Saqifat Bani Sa'ida, and they said, no, this cannot happen. And they started a very long conversation. You will find it again in the handouts. Okay? In this conversation, to elect and to select the ruler after Prophet Muhammad, the word Quran, the word Islam was not mentioned. They spoke merely, only, they speak only about the realistic issues, that the tribes on the desert will never accept the power of any tribe apart of that of Quraysh. Why is that? Because Quraysh was the tribe of merchants who, to protect their trade, make a marriage relationship in each tribe. So they are cousins, uncles of people in each tribe in the desert. That's why the one who comes after Prophet Muhammad must be one of the tribe Quraysh. And after in Islamic theology, this was developed by the false prophetic tradition, in my opinion, that says imams are from Quraysh. But anyway, so in this debate about who inherit the temporal power of Prophet Muhammad, the only thing was present was not Islamic value, was not the Ummah, was the tribe, the logic of the tribe. Okay, and this continued what's called apostasy war after. Soon after the death of Prophet Muhammad, many tribes, they don't want to make part of the Ummah anymore. This usually called in the books of Islamic history apostasy wars, because they say this tribe turned it back and they refused Islam. But this is not true. This tribe were paying as zakah, almonds, to Prophet Muhammad. Why? Because in the Quran there is a verse saying, take from them fortunes, share that to purify them and their fortune. Okay? And they said Prophet Muhammad died. And Abu Bakr cannot purify us because he is not a prophet. So we are not going to pay this money anymore. This was the main reason of the war of the soon after the death of first civil war. Abu Bakr, the first Caliph, he decided to fight all the tribes in the desert using who? The pagans of Mecca who just entered Islam after the conquest of Mecca. Okay, they were not those Muslims who fought the battles of Islam. No, they were the enemies of Islam, because when Prophet Muhammad conquered Mecca, he gathered the people of Quraysh and asked them, what do you think I am going to do with you? And they said to him, you are our brothers and the son of our brother. And he said to them, go, you are free. And used a word in Arabic, a term called at-tulaqa, which means somebody became free after being a prisoner. So the generals of the Islamic army that reconquested the Arabic Peninsula after Islam was led by generals from the tribe of Quraysh, from this category of at-tulaqa, those who were freed by Prophet Muhammad. So the tribe came back. The Quraysh was the most rich, the most intelligent, well prepared, most people who can read and write. So they take over the administration of the newborn state of Islam, and they ruled it according to the rule of the tribe. So we see that Islam from its early beginning was living this dualism, this coexistence, because no one at that time criticized the Prophet Muhammad or criticized the Quran. All of them were believing in Quran and believing in Prophet Muhammad as messenger of God. But all of them were behaving at the same time according to the values and the rules of the tribe. This is one element. The second element that I want to mention is the element of language. We said that Islam came basically to destroy the tribe. After 40, 50 years of Islam, the Bedouins, the Arabs, conquered all the ancient world. And these Bedouins, they went out of the desert and they started to live in Iraq, in Persia, in Egypt, in these extremely civilized countries, astonished by this civilization, how they dress, how they eat, how they talk, and their language started to disappear. The new generations were speaking Arabic hardly, like those Arabs who were born in West today, and they cannot speak Arabic correctly. The Muslims were astonished by this phenomenon and said, now we are going to lose everything. If we lose Arabic, we are going to lose Quran, and if we lose Quran, we lost everything. Islam is finished. So what they do, the caliphs heavily financed a unique movement in human history in which thousands of scholars, they went to the most isolated tribes in the desert. Many of them were similar to these tribes that they found every while in the Amazon. Completely disconnected with the outside world. They go there to these tribes. Some of them, they didn't even know that there was a prophet sent and the new religion called Islam. They know nothing about this. And they spend, they go there with their camels, tons of paper and the ink, and they stayed there for years, writing every word that come out from the mouths of these Bedouins. The Bedouins became the high reference of the Arabic language because they present the purity of the Arabic tongue, which is the main element of the Arabic identity. So here it's very interesting contradiction because Islam came to destroy the tribe, but now this collected language, the language of the tribe, is the only reference to understand the Quran. So we cannot understand the Islam today if we don't use the language collected from these Bedouins. And it was very powerful. In the time in which that most of Arabic science, and by the way, most of Arabic, what's so-called Arabic science, was thanks to non-Arabs. The founder of the Arabic grammar, Sibawayh, he was a Persian. Al-Bukhari himself, the one who wrote the second correct book after the Quran, Sahih al-Bukhari, he is from Ukraine. Okay, so the most of the scholars who have established what we call the Arabic science were not Arab. So in front of this purity of the language of the Bedouins, they couldn't do anything. At-Tabari and the other scholars who interpreted Quran, when they say, okay, you will find now in the book many examples of what I am saying. One of the, for example, interpretations of the Quran, about a verse about the right to a man to how a man can punish his disobedient wife. So one of the things was to ihjuruhunna. It means from also hajara, hijra, it means to leave them, to boycott them. This was rational. So if your wife is disobedient, don't talk to her anymore. Okay. But At-Tabari said, but this is wrong interpretation. Because the verb hajara comes from hijar, and the hijar is a sort of rope that they used to tie up the camels. So they interpreted, he chose the right interpretation is to tie up the women to their beds as a punishment for their disobedience. So we see this, everything in Arabic science, that it's the main source of what's so-called today Islamic law, everything was really submissive to this language of the Bedouin society that Islam came basically to destroy it. And this is the second element of coexisting contradiction within the Islamic tradition. That's why in Islamic tradition today, I am a Muslim, and I believe Islam is really a religion of peace. But I cannot deny that many verses in Quran can be easily interpreted completely against the peace. Why? If you follow the line of the tribe within the Islamic tradition. Because what we call Islamic tradition today is not only Islam, it's this coexisting elements from Islam and the tribe. So the very same verse in Quran can be interpreted in a way and in its completely opposite way at the same time. Democracy, for example, you see some Muslims with certainty say democracy is, like atheism. It's against Islam because the only legislator is God. And democracy gives the people the right of legislation. So it's against Islam. Some other Muslims, like Abdul Muhati Bayoumi, for example, made a huge book like this to prove the main inventor of democracy was Islam and was Prophet Muhammad. And that document that was written, you will find it also in the book. That document that Prophet Muhammad wrote when he arrived to Al-Madinah is the first written constitution in human history. How can you bring these two things together? From one side, Islam invented democracy, and from the other side, Islam condemned democracy. How you bring these two things together? The only answer that I found is this coexisting contradiction within the Islamic tradition. When the ummah that came to destroy the tribe, this ummah became a tribe. You find it even in everyday practice. You find today in mosques in Egypt or in Iraq or in other Muslim country, they pray only for Muslims, which is against Islam, against the idea of Islam. In the Ummah Islam, we are obliged to love everybody and to invite him to live within our Ummah, even keeping his different faith. Okay, but in the practice today, Muslims look to themselves as a tribe, not as a Ummah, not as the space that give liberty and the freedom to everybody to live according to his faith. So this coexisting, what I call coexisting contradiction within the Islamic tradition. Okay, I will go. In modernity, it's the same. The modernity has the same problem of tradition. We see what so-called modernists in Arab world today and the liberalists in Arab world today, they are not much different from Salafi and from traditionalists. They think in the same way. Traditionalists, everything to be legitimate in our reality today, it has to get a root in the past. And we say why Arabs sacrifice the past. Also, modernists, when they want to say no, but there is no contradiction between Islamic law and reason, what they do? They justify this by going back to figures like Averroes. Okay, so it's the only way. Search in the past for a legitimacy in the present. This is what I call overlapping discourses. And it's many elements. And the conflict between, also the instrument became more important than its goal. Preserving life, for example, to preserve life, we have all of these penalties. But these penalties became more important than preserving life. We see also searching in the past for a source of legitimacy to exist in the present. Contradiction between form and the content. I'm sorry I cannot speak about everything, but if you are interested, you can ask me after. Justifying, instead of this, what we said, for example, in the breastfeeding case. Everybody is justifying. Nobody had the courage to say this is incorrect or this is not valid anymore for our reality. And I am not saying this because I am criticizing Islam. In fact, the great scholars in Islamic history did. Abu Hanifa once, who's one of the founders of the 4 doctrines of Islam, Hanifi doctrine, once people went to him and said, the deal between the seller and the buyer cannot be concluded as long as they are in the same place. And said, no, this is not valid. And they said, no, but this is, a confirmed prophetic tradition. You cannot contest what Prophet Muhammad said. He said, no, I can contest it. If it's against reason, I can. And they said, it's not valid for our reality today. Imagine if these 2 persons who made the deal are in prison, or they are traveling for a month in a ship. So I can buy your shirt using it, and after 3 months, I give it back to you before we get off the ship and get back my money. So he said, no, it's not valid anymore. So this way of thinking is not strange for the Islamic tradition. In fact, it existed, but it was marginalized in the history of Islam. But today we see what we call modernists and the liberalists are very similar to traditionalists. Of course, also rejection of the positive principles shared by Islam and the modernity, and there is endless examples for this. The faculty of this is also very interesting because the society today, they don't think anymore. There is a mediation. Modernists are mediators between modernity and its societies in West and their local society. Salafi are mediators between present and the past, between people who are living today and the origins and their ancestors in the past. Okay? This is very interesting, exclusion of different and the exclusion of difference. Some Muslims say if somebody is Christian, he has no rights, he is out, because they think exactly like the tribal way. Others say, no, there is no difference. Islam, Christianity are the same. There is no difference. Little things, but... So, or exclusion of the different, or exclusion of the difference. Looking to the difference as evil, not as a grace from God. Lack of harmony with time and the place, and between time and the place. Why? Because those who work may choose to be mediator between present and the past. Traditionalists, they are living here because they go deep in the roots of their culture, but they are not living now because they are alienated from the modern civilization. The modernists are the opposite. They are living now, the moment, the civilization of today, but they are out of their own local societies. So there is no harmony between time and the place, whether for modernists or traditionalists. Okay. Just 5 minutes. I know it's hot and I talk too much. But I would love to also present this study that I made, statistical study. I choose not 1,000, 999 questions, because usually when we study fatwa, we go to study the answer of the imam. And when we go to study the answer, we think in the theology and the debate between jurisprudential schools and all of these things. I made a different choice. I choose to study the question of people, because technology has afforded finally for us, for first time, these questions. Because before, the question is not there. The answer is the most important. Now on these websites, and this is something really very alarming, I advise you to go and see this website, Islam Question and Answer, Islam Today, all of these websites, and see what kind of Islam that they are preaching. And you see how hundreds of millions of Muslims are following them, especially in West. Go in the Islam Today, Islam Question and Answer, that is financed by the Ministry of Awqaf of Qatar, and search for the word democracy, and you see what will come out for you. So, for first time, we have the text of the questions. So I studied this text of question to understand what Muslims are looking for, in today. And the result was astonishing. Most of Muslims living in West, they don't care about the stereotypes that we know. They mostly care about living in harmonious way with their neighbors and with their society. Okay? You see, for example, I studied the questions, 28%, which is the highest one, questions about social relationships. 18% about devotional acts, worshipping. Relationship with non-Muslim, 17%. So you see, the true interest of Muslims is not building a mosque, is not the veil of the women, is not all these stereotypical things that we usually talk about, burqa or burkini, all of these things are totally marginalized. When you go and see what really Muslims are looking for, they are looking for a good relationship with others. Okay? The answers are something, but the question are really very interesting. So these questions reveals that you see here, alcohol, all of these questions. Now I think I arrived to 50 minutes that we agreed, but if you ask questions, I will answer. This statistical studies has shown, and now we are doing on a very large scale with the University of Bicocca in Italy, with the Department of Statistics. We are studying now, up to now, we collected 250,000 questions of Muslims living in Europe and the United States to study the structure of the text of this question and see the amazing things that coming out from these questions. What are really Muslims looking for in the West? They are looking for living in harmonious way with others. The mosque, marginal. The hijab is marginal. All what we present in media and in public debates about Muslims don't care about it. Okay? But this very few percentage makes rumors, and they are very loud, and they are here and much more present. I think the best solution to the problems of Muslim of West is to give space for this silent majority of Muslims not living in another continent or in another, living with us here, amongst us here in West, giving the same visibility, space, and voice, and these extremist voices will be marginalized because the science prove that the majority of Muslims, they don't care about the other things. You remember we left this young guy in front of the bathroom, in pain, cannot decide if he whether enter the bathroom or not. It seems very dramatic for us, but for him was no drama at all, because in 1 second he wrote a question to the Facebook page of Al-Azhar. I am in front of the bathroom with my cell phone full of Quranic verses. What should I do? And the Imam ready 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not the same Imam, they make him. He answered to him, dear young man, do you by chance memorize some verses of Quran? The young kid, of course. What a question. Yes, I do. The Imam asked him to leave out the bathroom his cell phone and his heart. And this what remains of Muslims today if they don't gain back the attempt to build an ummah and they give up the elements of the culture of the tribe. Thank you very much.
I have one question. You talked about the importance of the Muslims in the Western world, the silent majority, how important it is for... okay, you spoke about how important it is for the voices of the silent majority, the Muslims in the Western world, to be heard, to sort of overshadow these myths about the hijab and things of that nature. How will that happen? What is the mechanism that will happen when it appears to be that the Muslims, the silent majority, are afraid to express their opinions and concerns because of the more radical Muslims?
Yes. I can give example from my experience living in Italy. In Italy, for example, every year in Christmas, debate in newspaper, for those who defend the right of Muslim kids to do not celebrate the Christmas. And debate in the society, those who say no, but they came to our society, they have to follow our culture, and so all of this debate. But when they investigated the Muslims students in school, they found many of them participating in the presepe. How do you say? In the nativity, no. So this is really very important to say what? To say integrating people will not be by their submission to the law and the culture of the society, but by a proposal of the society. People do not integrate to law. People integrate in society. But if this society is absent, if this society have no cultural proposal, if this society have no social space for these new elements, these people will live in parallel society, and this is exactly what is happening, at least in Europe, where I live and where I study. Muslims are living in parallel society. In Paris, 1 kilometer away from Tour Eiffel, you find a neighborhood that 100% from Northern Africa. Language, voices, smells, everything. They are living in parallel society. They are not integrated in society. Why? Thank you for this question, because it's very important. Today in our world, there's two models of integration. The French one and the British one. The French one is the secularism. In order to guarantee for everyone an access to the public space, we have to deprive everyone from manifesting his own identity. A Jew cannot bring his kappah. A Muslim woman cannot bring her veil. A Christian cannot bring his cross to the public space, for example. Why? In order to guarantee for everybody a space for him. But what kind of public space is this, where everybody enter only without his identity? What kind of person? What kind of dialogue between people without identity in public space? This has created a parallel society in the French model. The British one is much different. In the British society, they say everyone is permitted to come to public space with whatever kind of clothes, of religion, or symbols he wants. It's open society for everybody. But also this is very dangerous, okay? Because in the absence of the profound cultural proposal and the social proposal, this becomes a sort of communitarism. Non lo so, come si dice?
What do you mean?
Yes, like each community is living enclosed in its door. For example, a young lady from Pakistani origins is forced to marry somebody from Islamabad, okay? Or she is deprived of her inheritance. She cannot go. She cannot go to the civil court to complain. Why? Because in the idea of multiculturalism, they approved the Sharia court. And if this lady chooses to go to the civil court, not to the Sharia court, she will be excluded from her community. Out of her community, there is no community. Out of her community, there is no society. So again, these people cannot be integrated because of the lack of the social and the cultural proposal. I think the problem of the West today is not that different people who are coming to the West, but is the not having the courage to say this is our identity and this is our culture.
At the beginning of your talk, you said that the ultimate authority for behavior is the heart.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if it is in the case that the decision of the heart is in contradiction to Sharia, is in violation of Islamic law. Is it permissible for a Muslim to obey the heart and to disobey Sharia?
It's not possible, it's obligatory. Because what is Sharia? The word law doesn't exist in Arabic language. The word we use is Roman word, qanun. So the idea of law doesn't exist.
Sharia.
No, what is Sharia? Sharia, those who knows a little bit of Arabic, like Sharia, which means street. So what is Sharia? Sharia is the very path towards water in the desert. And it's not any path, it's not any road. It is that one made by the step of the ancestors, of the previous people. So it's a road made by those who have passed before. This, in the desert, this is the only guarantee for life. In the desert, you don't joke, say, I walk from here, I am not following the path. No, this means only one thing, death. So this is the meaning of the Sharia. Sharia in Arabic language in Quranic context, always used in a rhetorical way to say religion, faith is the Sharia, is the very path towards eternal life. So Sharia doesn't mean law. And now finally scholars in West started to do this. They stopped to write Islamic law and they start to write Sharia. Because Sharia is not law. Sharia is the source of law. In Egyptian constitution of 1974, so 1971, President Sadat has imposed the second article of Egyptian constitution that says Sharia is the main source of legislation in Egypt. In the constitution of 2012, the year after the Egyptian revolution, in the parliament with the majority of Muslim Brotherhood, they made a huge battle to change the word Sharia as a source to say the Islamic jurisprudence. Why? Because the Supreme Constitutional Court of Egypt, in a debate about niqab, the burqa, in public space, in hospitals and the school, they have defined the meaning of the Sharia by the general principles of Islam. So this is the meaning of the Sharia according to the decision of the Supreme Constitutional Court of Egypt, accepted by the majority of Muslims. So the Sharia is the principles of freedom, justice, is the human values. How can heart be in contradiction with justice? That's why Prophet Muhammad in this prophetic tradition said, consult your heart, consult. Say, but they say, I am an ignorant man. He said, consult your heart. I am a simple man. Consult your heart, consult your heart, consult your heart. This is how it's written in the prophetic tradition. So the heart is the ultimate reference. It cannot be in contradiction with the Sharia because Sharia is not a codified law. Sharia is general human principles and values. The Islamic jurisprudence can be contested, can be reviewed, can be changed. This happened in the history of Islamic religion 1,000 times before. I hope I answered your question. Okay, after the Mr. here.
The idea of the identity context between Arabs, which is when you spoke initially about the tribes that people usually in the Arab countries they try to identify themselves as a tribe, which is like a single identity, right? Because it's easy, right? It makes things simple. Is there any way in your book you spoke about Sufis and how they approach this one single identity? Because my understanding is, for Rumi, for example, he says that, why should I have one identity? Why can't I have multiple identities? It is very dangerous if you define as a Muslim. And when people say that you can be only a Muslim, but you can't be American, you can't be secular, why can't I be a Muslim and secular and American and more, right? So the Sufi's perspective in terms of identifying yourself with one identity versus multiple identities, which is, I think this has the solution in all Muslim countries, which is you don't have to simplify things by saying that you are only one identity, but you can be more. And I think Rumi has a saying that live your life as a flowing canvas, which is one leg can be fixed in one identity, which is fine, which is okay, but the other leg should be like growing a big circle across other culture and countries, so you can integrate. And I think the Quran has a verse that saying that we have created you of different nations, so you know each other.
Yes.
So you know each other. So that's the whole idea of being created as different tribes or nations, to know each other than building barriers and something that would prevent you from doing this.
I completely agree with you about this, but the biggest problem of all Sufi movements that they don't care about the reality. In fact, the most important value of Sufi movement is what they call the absence. Being absent from your surrounding and connected to God. This is a disastrous, in my opinion, element in the Sufi thinking that make it always out of the history. The history of Islam, Sufi will never counted as a critical element in this history, because they choose to be out of all kind of political conflict, out of all kind of social practice, and this, even if they have this, all of these wonderful ideas about self, about God, about the relationship between man and God, it's extremely, they are very beautiful really, because they are to find the beauty of God in each creature and in each human being and in each place. Yes, this is wonderful, but their choice to be out of the reality, to do not make a fight, to present and to bring their ideas to life is a fatal thing, because this resulted their complete absence. Even if in Egypt, officially, the Sufi registered in Egypt, they are 25 millions. They are the biggest party, the biggest community ever in Egypt and in Arab world. But they never take part of the political life or the social life. Yes, I understand, but how you bring this beauty to reality? This is something, very fatal, but I agree. We love Sufi, Ibn Arabi, and all of them, yes, Rumi, all of them, they bring, wonderful readings of Islam, really. But unfortunately, they are always marginalized by their choice. By their choice.
I'm sorry, that will have to be the last question.
Okay, Mr. Rira.
Okay.
That one already.
Sorry.
But we cannot have 1 minute for him?
I think we have to, we've already gone over
Yeah,
20.
I am
So
sorry.
we can certainly take questions afterwards.
Okay.
And thank you
Sorry.
very much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.